We have the conscious mind. That's our ability to perceive what we say time and space. So it's our ability to see what's around us, perceive it as well. That's only 10% of our brain. And then we have 90%, which is the subconscious. Now, our
Hmm.
subconscious is our belief systems, it's the way we see ourselves, it's our memory bank. When you're finding yourself in really, really heavy overthinking loops, just I think the easiest way to really start to repattern that is just to be like, okay, what question am I asking? The question will have inherently negative answers about yourself. Okay, what question should I be asking? Just that simple there, those two questions. If you are repetitive with that, if you're consistent with that, you will see changes over time.
Welcome to Vibrant Publishers podcast. Our guest for today is Annaliese Arthur, a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist whose work centers on reprogramming the subconscious mind, helping people realizing limiting beliefs and transforming the inner patterns that keep them stuck. Having navigated the mental health system herself, Annalise brings a deeply personal understanding of how it can feel invalidating or leave people unheard. That journey has shaped her compassionate approach, creating a space where clients feel genuinely seen and understood. Blending neuroscience, subconscious repatterning, and language based techniques, she helps people not only heal, but feel truly empowered and at home within themselves. Beyond her clinical work, Annalise is also a mental health editor and writer, using her expertise to shape writing that's deeper, better informed, and emotionally resonant. Welcome to the podcast, Annalise.
Thank you. What an introduction. I feel very flattered. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to be here to share more knowledge to the world and people who need it most.
Great to have you. So, a topic for today is one that feels more important than ever in the world we live in. It's about understanding ourselves at a more deeper level, breaking free from the patterns that hold us back, and finding ways to truly heal and not just cope. So, we're calling it healing from the inside out. And I'd like to begin with the first question.
Mhm.
So for the listeners meeting you for the first time, how would you describe the work that you do and the people that you support?
Well, you already put it pretty good with your intro, but I work with people from all walks of life, but I find specifically a lot of my clients that I work with recently are people who feel like they've failed the world of mental health or therapy. I think a lot of people right now getting therapy, getting help are really, really struggling. You know, we look at the world and we are prescribing the most antipsychotics, the most antidepressants, but why is the number still going up?
Hmm.
And that's a really big question. I'm finding a lot of people are losing hope in the mental health system. So, what do? I help people who are really struggling with their mental health, especially when it comes to sensitivity. People who feel like they're too much, not enough. And what I do is really look at their life, really look at their habits, their mindsets, their thought loops, and look at ways that we can repattern that to have a healthier outlook on the way that they show up, the way they feel about themselves, and a lot of different things. But yeah, mainly working with highly sensitive people because I think those are the people who need the help the most. But I've also been through stages in life where I struggled with severe depression, anxiety, and so I understand what it's like to be in those shoes, but to feel like you're an abnormality.
Got it. Now, to help the viewers understand better, I'd like you to share from your experience what some of the most common unseen inner patterns or survival strategies are that are keeping people stuck, even if they want to change.
Mm. There's a lot of I mean, there's so many different patterns that people stay in. I like to say that we're all kind of stuck in our own illusions. When you find yourself in the same thing every single time in the same result, and that result can be like a feeling of unlovable. That result can be people only like to take from me, and I have to give so, so much in order to receive little. When something
Hmm.
becomes a pattern, we take that on as a belief, and then we kind of create this illusion that that's what we deserve and that's what we're worthy of. We all have a different one. One of my old patterns was one of the things that I said before, which was I felt that in order to receive just a little bit, just to get a little bit of love, I had to give so much. I remember, saving up money to help pay for my friends' rents, so many things just to receive love. I had this deep belief that I was unworthy. In order to be it, I needed to give and give and give.
Hmm.
That was my own inner pattern. And a lot of us have these inner patterns in some sort of way. So, when it is a pattern, we tend to get stuck in it. We tend to create a belief out of it. Another one is just a belief of clients that I come to me say that a lot of therapists or a lot of people go, "Oh, you're just negative," or "You're just, putting yourself in the system." But the thing is that when the nervous system has been in repetitive survival modes, and that doesn't mean that they've been, in a severe abusive situation, but it can be situations where they've been constantly put under, told that they're not enough, small repetitions of things that are telling you you're too much, you're not enough, you need to be more. The nervous system learns to go into survival.
Hmm.
Even if something positive comes into their life, the nervous system reacts. It's like that's too good to be true. A
Hmm.
lot of different things. And so I think the most uncommon, unseen inner patterns are the small ones. It's not the big, like, oh, this person has an anger management issue or anything like that. It's the small beliefs that make us feel smaller than everyone else or that stop us from looking for looking to go towards any form of happiness or anything because we get stuck in our own illusion.
Got it.
Mhm.
So this is how limiting beliefs are formed, correct?
Yeah, similar. I mean, a limiting belief is, yes, any belief that makes you feel smaller than anyone else, but they can form through a lot of different times. Like one of the most common ones that I see with everyday people, more women than men, but men definitely as well, is a belief that forms that I'm ugly or I'm unlovable, something like that. That's a very common one that I see. But there are many different ways it can form. But one of the most common ones I see is let's say you're a woman or you're a girl, you have a mother, and you see her all the time go, "Oh, I look fat in this dress." She'll look in the mirror and say, "Oh my god, I look so horrible today. Oh, I'm so ugly." And in
Hmm.
your child's mind, you're like, "My mother's beautiful. I love her no matter what." But she doesn't think that about herself. She calls herself stupid, she calls herself ugly, she calls herself all these things. Well, that's my best role model, right? That's the person I look up to. So I'm going to take on these beliefs about myself. Can be the exact same thing with a fatherly figure, with beliefs around like, oh, you're not going to get anywhere in life. I tried to do this and this and this, and I only failed. We take upon those beliefs as our own. And repetition of anything will create a belief. Again, repetition of not only being told something, but hearing it. What we see on TV, what we're surrounding ourselves with school. You look at a very, very severe problem with, again, more women around beauty where they have to change their physical appearance. And does that make them feel enough? At the end of the day, no, because feeling enough is not something that you change on the external. It's something that you have to change on the internal.
Right. You said that what gets repeated is what forms their beliefs.
Hmm.
But if it's something that's, you know, something, I mean, they're seeing the proof that this particular thing is repeating and hence I must be this. How do they get out of that loop? By
Yeah,
having small wins or maybe by changing what they're doing?
yeah, super. I mean, super great question. Most important. It is very, very hard, and it does change on the situation, on the person, on what they're feeling. I'm going to go with the one I was talking before, which is a little bit more simple and more broad, which is women, and
Hmm.
struggling with like their appearance. But this is something all men experience as well.
Yeah.
And how you want to change that is simply seeing yourself. It's going to sound very, very, very weird. This is a very one specific experience because everything There's tweaks, it changes, it's all individual. But looking in the mirror and just looking at yourself, but also facing the things that you say. One thing I
Hmm.
do with clients a lot is if they have very negative internal beliefs about themselves, it's something that they think, but they often don't say out loud. I get them to write it out and say it to themselves. They need to see what the reality is. And a lot of the times when I do this with clients, they start crying. It's like I'm worthless, I'm unlovable, I'm so stupid, I can't do anything right. These are things I hear quite a lot. But when they say it out loud and they say it to themselves, they tend to break to see the reality of it. The thing is that these inner beliefs are super normal for us. Our nervous system, our subconscious, it doesn't really care about what's good or bad. It just cares about what's common, and what's common is normal and safe. That can be a childhood filled with abuse. That's why people tend to go back to abusive situations, because that's what their nervous system sees as normal.
Okay.
But when you bring it to the light, it's very, very heavy. And then so we look at the specific beliefs, and then we look at how we can start to reprogram it. If it's something like, you might have heard of like CBT, cognitive
Yeah.
behavior therapy.
Hmm.
This is a good way to do it. It's a good start. I don't think going straight into one therapy is the way. It's using lots of different tools. But if the woman, like I was saying before, is saying like I'm ugly, I'm unlovable, we need to start changing that belief. And we can't just change that belief by going, oh, I'm lovable and beautiful, because when you say something like that you do not believe, you'll literally feel your body kind of reject it, like, oh, like kind of that feeling of cringe, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so what you need to do is you need to start to add things that are the in between. They don't have to be believable, but something to work towards. Because again,
Hmm.
whatever you are repetitively hearing or around, you will absorb. We're like sponges. We naturally absorb that. When someone's angry, we can feel it. We absorb that. We get uncomfortable, right? We can do the same with the ways that we treat ourselves and talk to ourselves. So back to the words, which is, let's say I'm ugly and unlovable. How can we change that? Instead of I'm unlovable, I'm learning to love myself. It's not I'm lovable, I love myself. It's just that I'm learning and I'm trying.
Hmm.
And then with, I'm ugly, it's just like I'm learning to see the beautiful parts. Can change on each person, but I go through with my clients and I see their body's reaction, which is their nervous system reaction, to see, okay, are they rejecting this? Because a lot of people hear these things of like words of affirmation, a lot of different things, but oftentimes that tends to go south when you're being told things that are completely opposite to what you believe. So just having something that's manageable, that's small, works. The next thing is more action. So those ones are more internal beliefs. Okay, every single time we're seeing ourselves have this negative belief, we're just trying to reprogram it. We're trying to change it, because the thing is that other people see you as beautiful, other people see you as lovable, a lot of different things. It's that these beliefs that we have been inherited
Hmm.
that are now in our system. Sometimes they still feel true, because there are still people that come into our lives that make us feel like that, make us feel too much, whatever it is, feel like that we need to do more, etc. The next thing is really, really taking action in our lives, and sometimes that's removing people, sometimes that's
Hmm.
causing conflict and setting boundaries. One of the most simple things is, it's very, very common when people have a little bit more low self worth that they tend to be the butt of the joke, if that
Hmm.
saying makes sense. I don't know if it's Australian, but they're always the one that's a little bit made fun of, or they get a little bit picked on, and it's just, it's not hurtful. It's a little playful, but what does that create over time of the repetition? I believe, and the part of that is setting boundaries and being honest, and it's just being like, hey, like, I know you said that, and I know it's funny, but sometimes when you say that, it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I'm really trying to work on my self worth, because sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. Can you maybe not use those jokes? Now that can go many ways, usually two, where the person rejects it. Hey, you're too much. You're this, 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 and they're trying to turn it around on you. You're
Hmm.
the persecutor. You're the problem here. Okay, if that person's doing that, well, I don't believe I'm the problem, so I don't want you in my life. And that can be very hard. That's something I had to do with my own best friend, and my own best friend dropped our friendship when I first made moves like that. And that was the hardest thing of my life. I think the hardest thing with the healing journey or anything is taking action, and that involves the people in your life. It's so easy to look at every single other external thing in your place, but being honest with your parents, your best friend, your partner about how you actually feel, that's incredibly hard. And so
Right.
that's the other thing is taking action. And that can happen. I'll give one more example of that is, I've got a client and he is incredible. I think he's great. He's a business owner, does so much, but he's finding himself like he has to do everything. But he has a very big fear of disappointment. He doesn't want to disappoint others. He doesn't want to feel like make others guilty. He doesn't want to make anyone feel anything but happy. Because in his childhood, he had a very emotional mother. And so it was his job and his responsibility to make her happy. And for that, he has a big fear of disappointment. And so he's a very honest person, but is he truthful to himself, his emotions to himself and to other people? No. And so we're starting with micro truths, so just being like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now, I'm busy. Those things are incredibly hard for him. He wants to be honest to his, a lot of different people in his life. He wants to be open in many, many different ways, but micro truths is how we get there. With limiting beliefs, it's not getting from here to here, it's focusing on those small steps and adjusting those micro truths, adjusting those micro steps, micro beliefs as we go. And that way, it's manageable, it's not too much, and you can still function normally. Because sometimes when we're going into mental health, it can be severely hard for you. But
Right.
yes, that's it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing those amazing points. And sometimes I think even taking, I mean, it's easy to talk about the solutions, but even something as small as speaking out affirmations and making that a habit becomes overwhelming for that person. So yeah, what would help is taking tiny steps and then one thing at a time.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the sayings I really like to use is like, when you have a whole plate of food, do you eat everything at once? No, you take one bite at a time. And I think people can get really overwhelmed with things, even like goals, when they go, I'm here and I want to be here. And they'll look at like the steps in the middle, but there's like the really first teeny steps that people often skip. And again, like I was saying before, some of those
Yeah.
steps is just like even confronting the actual truths about yourself. That that's a very hard step and that's easy to skip to go to whatever. So definitely.
Right. All right. Now, moving on to the next point, I wanted to talk what is at the center of beliefs, inner patterns, survival strategies is the subconscious mind. And if you could explain to the audience what that is and how it influences our daily, emotions and decisions.
Yes, great. No, I love this. I love this question. Subconscious mind is for me like one of the most fascinating things. So, okay, I'm gonna explain it like from the start just to be a bit easier. We have the conscious mind. That's our ability to perceive what we say time and space. So it's our ability to see what's around us, perceive it as well. That's only 10% of our brain. And then we have 90%, which is the subconscious. Now, our
Hmm.
subconscious is our belief systems, it's the way we see ourselves, it's our memory bank, it's our ability to react and send signals to our nervous system. It's the connection to the nervous system. So, the subconscious is a really interesting and crazy place. But the subconscious doesn't have a concept of time or space. Before I was saying our conscious mind, I'm going to always point to here for the conscious mind. It can understand and perceive time and space, subconscious can't. And what I mean by that is we can often get trapped in certain memories. It's why we have PTSD, trauma, triggers. For example, again, previous client I worked with a while ago, she used to get very triggered and go into breakdowns. Sometimes it's easily by loud noises.
Hmm.
When I did a hypnotherapy session with her, I realized that we went back, and She used to get abused by her father, but he always used to come home on a loud motorbike. The
Hmm.
subconscious takes that in, it absorbs that, and it goes, okay, every single time there's a loud noise, I might get abused. It gets trapped in that
Right.
memory.
The
And so,
Pavlovian, I think the Pavlovian theory, as in the
mhm,
dog and the bell, one
yes,
of the classic examples, the scientific experiments. Yeah.
yep, yep. Oh my god, yeah, lots of different ones with dogs, especially as well with that. But yes, exactly. So the thing is that when we have triggers, when we have a lot of different things, when we have fears, a lot of it's not. We can go, hey, like it's just a loud noise. It's not a problem. Phobias, we can go, hey, it's just a spider. It's just this. It's not necessarily this specific sound aspect, whatever sensory experience. It's what it's triggered inside of here that's unprocessed.
Hmm.
And so the subconscious mind is really interesting because it works on sensory, it works on feeling. Someone can be like really stern and direct with you, but that can trigger something completely different. Even if you know, hey, that person's just being stern, direct, like they're not like being angry, it can trigger something really different. Like when you had a passive aggressive parent or grandparent all the time, and then suddenly we're back in that experience. Suddenly we're back and we're a 7-year-old child again, and we're having a tantrum, whatever it is. When the mind doesn't have time or the right tools to process something when we're young, or even when we're older, it tends to get stuck until we do process it.
Hmm.
Mhm. So the subconscious mind is very, very crazy, and it influences us in many different ways. Yes.
Right. And then comes the topic of how do you rewire the mind or the subconscious mind, whatever is the correct term. I think the process is called reprogramming your subconscious mind. How does that look like, and how is it different from just thinking positively all the time? Or if you could explain in detail.
Yeah, yeah. Again, great question. You've had some really good questions. Um, I mean, coming back to like thinking positively, I think it's a bit of a trend, I think, maybe just think positively, or there's lots of words like people can say like spiritual bypassing or like positivity bypassing, where it's like someone's in a negative mode, someone's upset, someone's really, really struggling with something, and they get told to just be positive, or oftentimes people really, really try to focus on the positive, and it does work. But then they have a severe shutdown, this severe
Hmm.
meltdown, because they're kind of, let's say, gaslighting themselves so much that they tend to go into breakdown. And so there's this time where people can be very, very overly positive, where they have these really, really
Hmm.
high highs and these really, really low lows. And what we want to do is get you into that middle stage, right? I think a
Right.
lot of people experience this where they feel too much or not enough. It's this like switch. I'm either too emotional, too much. The person thinks I'm crazy or thinks I need to calm down, or suddenly I'm not enough for anyone, you know? And so the process of reprogramming, so to go into more of that, is similar to what we were saying before. It's like what is your belief that you have? And sometimes that can be really hard to find. Some people go like, oh, I have a limiting mindset. And for me, I'm
Hmm.
like, that's way too broad. Like, what is the actual problem? Some people go like, oh, like I don't like conflict. Okay, like that's still too broad. Why don't we like conflict? What are we avoiding? What are the deep reasons why that we avoid it? And what is it in particular that we're avoiding? Because you can fear conflict, but also create it at the same time, right? Two
Yeah.
truths can be true at once. And so we
It's
got
like,
to,
yeah, no, I was saying it's like peeling the layers of an onion
yes.
till you get to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of modern therapy works very too broad. Like when we look at, I went through therapy as a like late teen, and I found it did worse for me than better, because at least when I was studying it, you have like what they say. I'm gonna put it all psychology in like a box. They say, okay, so we have these, let's say, like 6 boxes. You've got like anxiety, depression, PTSD, this, whatever. okay, put that person in a box. And then we like medicate it, and then we give them this list, and you tell them what to do with this list. And if they don't fit in this box, maybe cut them in half and put them in two boxes, anxiety and depression, BPD, whatever it is, da 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 da. And I find with like a lot of modern therapy, the ways that they're doing things is like working at something like a list, looking at a person like a number. And so they don't really get better. They kind of feel worse. They are able to treat some issues, but numb. They find themselves going into more stages of numb and kind of, you know, just turning the emotions off and just pushing through work or pushing through whatever experience. And that can be very bad as well, because the more you numb something, the more you create the separation. And that's when we have these really high swings, right? It's when we have these really neutral moments and then these really reactive moments. And so the process of reprogramming is really looking at, like, again, these deep beliefs. So kind of went on a little circle there, but coming back to the main point is looking at those small beliefs. As you said, like peeling the onion is really, really good in finding what's in the center. That was the point with modern therapy. Modern therapy, they just like look at the outer layers and they go like, you just need more self-love. You just need to buy
Hmm.
yourself more things. Get like, that's quite often what I hear is the result of modern therapy at times. Talk therapy is good. It's good to talk about a lot of things, and it's very, very important to feel heard. But when we're looking at programming, again, go, what is that like really, really deep belief? One of the most common beliefs that I see is it's not necessarily I'm avoidant of this, I'm avoidant of this. I don't want to feel like a disappointment. I said that one before, but we live in a world which is really, really good where we do have more, not for everyone. It is very dependent on countries and situations, but um, there are more opportunities compared to, you know, where there was in the past. But a lot of people don't have, sorry, I'm trying to find the right words. A lot of people have parents who make them feel like they're not enough. You need to be a doctor. You need to do this. You need to do this. And is it ever really enough for the parent? Doesn't tend to be enough for the parent. It's the same thing with a parent or an adult. They go, I'll be happy when I have this number in my bank account. I'll be happy when my mortgage is paid off. I'll be happy when this happens. And that's something that you see a lot in society. And so what I find is like the biggest limiting belief that people spend their entire lives avoiding is they don't want to be or feel like a disappointment. They'll avoid conflict. They'll avoid a lot of different things. They'll do everything but face this because that's hard. Now, the process of, I'm going to go just with this specific thing because reprogramming is very, very different for every feeling, every belief. It's similar, but I'm going to specifically talk about disappointment because I think that's something, I think we can all kind of relate to that at some point, right? But
Right.
reprogramming disappointment in particular, just in general, it starts with, again, what I was saying before is like really looking at it. I think people avoid things, but you need to be it. If you're avoiding disappointment, you tend to become a disappointment. You tend to do things like procrastination. You can be super smart and super good in some areas, but the thing that matters most, you tend to, because you avoid the feeling, you become it. Sorry, there's a barking dog. I don't know if you can hear it, but disappointment is something that we need to feel and be. And that sounds like a very difficult thing, but again, it's confronting it. It's facing the feeling that you have and just go, okay, I avoided disappointment and I have been a disappointment. And if I feel like I'm a disappointment now, I'm going to be it and I'm going to accept it. That kind of changes your mind. Instead of avoiding doing something, you already are. And from that, there's only one way up.
Hmm.
Sounds a little bit twisted, but it tends to work like that, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, it does. So, if you could give one quick tip to people, just something that they can do themselves.
Okay, great. So the first step with reprogramming your subconscious mind is it's reprogramming your beliefs, right? Because the subconscious holds um, all our belief systems. That's why we react. A lot of different things like we're going through before. The first thing is what we were saying before, which is like peeling back the onion, right? Peeling back all those different things to understanding, okay, what is the actual point? What are we looking at? What do we need to go into? Once we've peeled back all those layers and we see, okay, the belief is I'm afraid of a disappointment. I'm afraid of this. It's not this conflict. It's not this. That's a result of the belief. Everything that is more physical is a result of the belief, and the belief is what are we trying to avoid? And that's one of the biggest questions that I try to ask myself all the time is like, what am I avoiding? If something is
Hmm.
making me nervous, or if something is making me uneasy, or if I'm avoiding, let's say this party, what am I avoiding? Am I avoiding this person? Why am I avoiding this person? This person makes me feel anxious and makes them feel like they're better than me. They make me feel like disappointment. We can go into that one again. And so once we find that belief, we first need to just, not to say believe it, but we need to accept that in moments we are. Because when we avoid something, we tend to become the exact thing that we're avoiding.
Hmm.
I avoid situations that make me feel this, and then I end up feeling that. And if I'm feeling that, I, in that moment, believe I am. And so, really confronting this belief and being like, okay, sometimes, again, I'm going to use disappointment. Sometimes I'm a disappointment. It's not because I
Yeah.
am, but it's because I avoid this feeling because this happened to me, because I was never enough in my parents' eyes, because every job I ever work at, they always tell me to do more and I never get recognition for what I've done. You know, simple things can create that belief. And so then we need to look at every single thing. And this is like being a detective. And I do this a lot. Sometimes I'll spend an hour talking with my client, being like, okay, what is all the situations that creates this feeling? But what are all the situations specifically that you avoid to create this feeling? And so
Hmm.
again, the feeling of disappointment tends to be a little bit avoidant of conflict and be avoidant of a lot of different things. Sometimes people might, accidentally do something, like they might break something, or at work they might miss a deadline and they don't know what to do. So they just avoid it. Okay, now how can we confront this? How can we be honest to yourself and how can we be honest to the person? And so we look at like so many different situations in our life that create this feeling again when we avoid something, whatever the feeling is, we tend to create more of it. And so it's like, how can we confront these situations, not in a full way, but in small little things? So it's kind of like what I was saying before, like little micro truths. With disappointment,
Hmm.
it's just being like, hey, well, with disappointment, you often see a lot of people avoid things and blame people and like, no, it's because of this and this and this and this, and they hyper explain. And then the person's just like, just shut up. What are you saying? What, I don't even understand. Like some people kind of get very, very reactive, but not in a bad way, in an anxious way. But if you just go, hey, I messed up, I didn't do this, I avoid this because I feel like a disappointment and I don't want to be that. And this is, again, this has happened with my clients who specifically with can be a little bit reactive and in an anxious way. There's a big change in the reactions of other people. Massive. Instead of like people going like, oh, like you're too much, like what are you doing? Like, oh, I can't believe you've done this. They go like, oh, I didn't know you felt like that. No, it's okay. That's fine.
Hmm.
The thing is, we get into this thought loop, we get into these overthinking patterns and a lot of different things. And reprogramming is looking at the overthinking patterns as well. When we're overthinking, now this is a very good one because this is something I think a lot of people want to reprogram or repattern is, staying up late at night and overthinking or thinking about the same situation that's happened in the past many times. But overthinking is our brain's ability to problem solve. It's what kind of makes us different between monkeys and have allowed us to evolve is we have these really hyperactive brains. We have to overthink for threats. Now we don't actually have threats. We have food, we have water, we have shelter. We still have basic threats, but not like the way. And so our mind needs something to think about, and our mind needs something to problem solve. And
Hmm.
so what we do is we find a problem and I got to solve this problem, and we think about it again and again and again, and that gets into a loop, gives us this idea that we're being productive, a lot of different things, and we get stuck in that.
How do I break that loop?
Yeah, so good question. So we have something called the reticular activating system. It's at the very back of our brain. Um, Now this part is, again, this is the one I was saying that like tends to overthink a lot. We have a lot of other parts that contribute to it, like the amygdala. Won't go too much into that, but the reticular activating system is really great because it allows you to find whatever you search for. A really good example is like cars. If you're like wanting to buy a car and you're like, oh, I really like this car, suddenly you see it everywhere, right? Where before you didn't see it everywhere. And that's the mind's ability to find, search what it looks for. And so with our mind and overthinking, we tend to ask questions like if you've lost your job and you have a family, where's your mind gonna go? For, let's say an average person who goes like, "Oh, I'm lost my job. What is my mom gonna think of me? What am I gonna tell my wife? Oh my god, I have to take the kids to school," and, like, all these different things, and, like, "Oh, I'm such a disappointment. Why did they do it? Is it because of this?" And suddenly we have, like, 10 different questions and 10 different things we're trying to problem solve, but what's the actual question? How do I get a new job? Your mind is great at finding the answers to what you give it. For example, if you give the question of, like, "Why am I unlovable?" Your mind's probably gonna be like, "Well, maybe you're just ugly. Maybe you didn't do this enough. This happened," a lot of different things. But if you say, "How can I, find more love for myself?" Okay, that's different. Your mind's gonna find an answer. When you're finding yourself in really, really heavy overthinking loops, just I think the easiest way to, really start to repattern that is just to be like, "Okay, what question am I asking?" The question will have inherently negative answers about yourself. Okay, what question should I be asking? Just that simple there. Those 2 questions, what am I asking? What should I be asking? If you are repetitive with that, if you're consistent with that, you will see changes over time, 100%.
So ask the right questions is the takeaway, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, first find what the question you are asking that is,
Okay.
putting you in these negative moods. You know, and the it could be, "Why am I unlovable? Why is no one friends with me? Why am I not enough? Why did I, screw this up? But, how can I do this better?" It is
Hmm.
sometimes maybe too positive, but, even just simply changing the question to something more neutral. Eventually, your brain will do it. Anything with repetition, everything's a pattern. Our skin is a pattern. Language is a pattern. Our
Right.
mannerism. You just need to start repetitive with something else.
Right. Got it. Now, let's talk about how emotional sensitivity in these days, uh, less than before, but it is still seen as a bit of a weakness. How do you help clients see it as their power, their strength? And what are some myths that you wish people would, unlearn?
Mhm. I think, it's a good question. I think I'll start off with, like, what are the myths that people need to unlearn around it? I think one of the biggest myths is that, like, um, you need to be strong, and I think it's not that you don't need to be strong, it's you need to have balance. We look at the world, we have yin and yang, black and white, positive and negative.
Hmm.
We need to find the balance of having strength and sensitivity, because sensitivity is really, really important. Sensitivity is what, just with our daily lives allows us to get to the really specific details. It's what allows us to find more specific details in work and life. It's what allows us to be more empathetic. It's what allows us to see the bigger picture. Sensitivity is not seeing something as a whole, but seeing the small things, right? And a lot of people go like, "I need to be strong. I can't cry. I need to be this. I need to be this." There's a lot of like, I think, especially with men. I think men really struggle not with sensitivity, but with the external beliefs like that society has put on them, that they can't be sensitive. That to be sensitive is to be weak. But then you often see a lot of men who are heavily reactive with anger, who can't control their emotions. A lot of different things, and that's like, okay, you need sensitivity, we all have it, but it's something that you need to tap in, because when you do have your sensitivity, you're more aware of your own emotions. And so you're not so triggered by other people's basic comments, reactions, a lot of different things. Sensitivity is strength because it is the balance of strength, if that makes sense. And that's a big myth I wish people would unlearn, is this push it down, keep moving through, because what does that do? It has a severe breakdown, or people end up in severe depression as well.
And it might, and the person suppressing their sensitivity might pass it on to the next generation and then the next generation, right? Maybe
Yeah,
that is.
exactly. like, men don't cry, or, you need to be a good this, this is what makes your mother sad. This is what makes your dad angry. So you need to spend your whole life dodging these. And, then you become that because you don't
Hmm.
face it, right? Definitely. So I think that's like a big myth. Emotional sensitivity is definitely often seen as weakness, but as I was saying before, it's the balance that you definitely need. When you have sensitivity with yourself, um, you have higher tolerance to be able to hold things. You find people who you think are really, really strong and able to hold things as well. They tend to be quite sensitive to really small, minor things. They tend to be quite aware of their surroundings. They tend to be, some of the best business owners. Um, some of them can be very, very harsh people, but a lot of the really good ones tend to be really sensitive to their workers. How are you feeling? What's happening? And their business seems to rise so much because they are more aware of not just the, you know, bigger aspects, like this person needs money, this person needs this, but like, are they not feeling secure? Are they not feeling like they can be open enough? Are they not able to focus on their work because they're feeling anxiety about something in the place? You know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of different things. Like I've known workplaces that have excelled because they started therapy with their like having like half an hour sessions a week um, with their employees, and then suddenly like they're doubling within like a few months. So yeah, sensitivity
Right.
is very much a power, but we can feel too sensitive at the same time, which can also feel like a weakness.
Got it. Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. Now let's come to the topic of writing. So you
Hmm.
write and edit a lot of mental health content.
Hmm.
How does writing how has it helped you, and how can it help others make sense of healing? And what does this tell us about language and its power?
Um, yeah, beautiful question. I think so. How it's helped me, like specifically with how it's helped me, is I used to love to write poetry. That was a very big emotional processing part for me.
Hmm.
Being able to express myself, and even if it's in very raw ways, whether it's in very anger, very depressing, whatever it is, it was a process for me to hear myself, but also see myself. We don't tend to understand fully the problems until it's external. Processing is when we do something external, right? So painting, a lot of different things. So writing helped me with that, but it also helped me with coming back to myself. I was taking on a lot of clients, and I was finding that I was holding more emotions than I could take, and for that, I wasn't able to serve and really be present with my clients. And so I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was helping, but was it to the best that I know I could be? No. But then I need money, right? And that's a balance that I think a lot of people in the mental health world seem to have. So mental health, writing and content and everything like that helped me to find that balance, but it also helped me to see the finer details in a lot of things. With editing or ghostwriting mental health content, I think a lot of people, what I was saying before, is like have this really broad vision. When I look at a lot of self-help books, they go like, stop procrastinating, and they tend to look at something as a broader way. Whereas with what I do is I help people go into the deeper layers of the why. People go, what is it? The how, but we often miss the why. And that's what I find is a really powerful part. So, of what I at least help bring, not just to mental health books, but even like character development. I've been working a lot with like fiction writers, and, we need to understand the why. Why is this character doing this? We need to go more into their thought process, because then that helps us relate. In going into the last part of the question, which is like, why is language such a powerful part of this work? Is like language allows us to feel related to other people. We can, be put into their footsteps, their shoes. The thing is that like speaking about what we're feeling and what we're going through isn't that common to writing or reading it, or seeing it in a painting, or well, hearing it in music as well. But that's also, writing the lyrics. Language is a really powerful part because it helps us to connect to something that's a little bit more deeper in ourselves. Even if we're not going through that experience, we can relate to it, and we can also heal with it as well. I think we've all read some fiction book that has nothing to do with our journey and it's based in some mythical world, but we feel the character and we work with them. We, go through their story as well, and we often reflect parts of our lives and we can adjust certain things as well. I think that's why um, language is such a powerful part.
Right, interesting. So, moving on to the last question,
Mhm.
for someone listening who feels stuck, sensitive, or anxious right now, what is one small shift that they can make today to start their healing journey? And
Mhm.
also, how can they connect with you to learn more?
Okay, great question. For someone who's feeling stuck, sensitive, or anxious right now, um, so I'm gonna go like per each because as much as like that's a feeling that we can feel, each part like stuck, sensitive, anxious has a different way to working with it. So if you're feeling stuck, look at the areas of your life that you feel stuck, and look at the areas of your life that there is actual movement. Feeling stuck, it's a feeling that we have, but the more we focus on something, the more it grows, right? The more if we're in traffic, the more we focus on the traffic, the more angrier we get. But if we focus on the podcast or the music, we tend to get a bit lighter. So if you're feeling stuck, I mean, there's a different process going through it, but where is there movement in your life, and really try to focus on that and add to that part. If you're feeling stuck, like let's say in a business work, trying to start a business, whatever it is, and you're hitting the same roadblock, okay, focus on the part that there's movement, and just stay focused on that until you see a little bit more movement, and then go back. Feeling stuck tends to be we're focusing on the same thing. We're in the same loop. Just change the pattern. Really simple with that one.
Right,
For people who are feeling too sensitive, now this is a really big one. Sensitivity, it can be a really big power. Again, it can give you the ability to see the tiny aspects, so many details. Some many successful people tend to be highly sensitive. You just need to ground yourself more, and we ground ourselves through sensitivity, through sensory experience. That can simply be, if you're feeling really, really sensitive, overwhelmed, have a shower. Again, feel the water on your skin, textures, see like, light and stuff like that as well. When we're feeling too more sensitive, it's because we're armed by whatever sensory experience we're in. What sensory is the opposite of that? And so that's can be very, very helpful. That also works with ADHD, autism, a lot of different things. Again, sensory is sensory overwhelm. And so, what is a sensory experience that feels more calming to us? For me, that is literally water. So that's why I said have a shower. That's what I do straight away. I can get overwhelmed by crowds, so many different things. Shower, pool, great. So yes, and then anxiety right now is kind of coming back to what we are saying before is like, okay, we're anxious, we're having anxious thoughts. What is the question that you asked your thoughts to get you to that result of anxiety, and what should you be asking? I think,
hmm,
yes, going back to before, because these feelings, stuck, sensitive, anxious, there are as a whole, but they're separate in the feeling and the heaviness that it creates. Again, the mind can seem really, really complex, but we really need to section it off into small, different little parts and work on those parts as an individual. We're not just one person, we're multiple people with multiple experiences in one body, I like to say. So look at those different aspects. And yes, and how you can connect with me more. I used to have an Instagram and post all this stuff, right? Lots of different stuff. I don't do that as much more. I'm trying to focus more on writing, but you can follow me on Instagram. I have a website that you can go to as well. And I'm open just to answer questions if people need support, because not everyone can afford therapy or something like that. Yes.
yeah, right. And all of the links to the socials of Annalise will be mentioned in the description below. So feel free to
Mm.
connect with her. And thank you so much, Annalise. This was a really heavy podcast for me, but also a really important one and filled with lots of insights. It felt like I was in a 1 hour long therapy session where I was trying to understand whatever you were talking about. And I hope that this video, you know, helps the viewer, or at least one person, start their healing journey, their inner healing journey.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
thank you so much for joining us, Annalise.
That's okay. Thank you as well. And I'm glad that you were able to get something for it as well. I think the world of the mind and mental health seems so complicated, and it can be, but I think the most important thing is like what I was saying before, the really micro, small steps. So, yes, thank you for having me. It was great to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.